First question is from Dave Vassay. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave, could you give an update on Edwin Rios and why he was left off the NLDS roster?
Yeah, 2 days ago, we were taking he was taking some ground balls and made a play to his right, threw the ball to first base and tweaked his groin a little bit. I'm not sure if it was his right or left. Obviously significant enough for us not to include him on this active roster. So it's better today than it was yesterday. So hopefully he'll just continue to improve. And as we get through this series, hopefully he'll be available for the next one.
Your players yesterday had a team huddle before the workout. Were you aware that was going to happen, or was that something that Justin and Mookie took upon themselves?
Yeah, very organic. I loved it. I had no idea, but obviously when you're talking about Justin and Mookie leading that meeting, which I assume is the case, I don't question the messaging.
Thank you.
Next question is from Alanna Rizzo. Go ahead.
Dave, with Rios off of your roster because of the groin issue, in the event that you would need to take Turner out of the game for any reason defensively at third, who's your backup third baseman?
Yeah, I think that Matt Beatty can play third. I think that it would probably be Max Muncy. Move Max over there to third base, and then potentially have Beatty over there at first base, or potentially bring Cody into first base, but then it compromised a little bit on the outfield as far as the speed, the foot speed in a big outfield. So hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but we've got some options.
And Dylan Floro added to this DS roster. Is that more of a matchup situation for you against this Padres lineup?
It is. I just think that Dylan's had a tremendous year, and I felt terrible not having him in the wild card series, but just excited to have him back active with us for this series. With a little bit more of an expanded format, getting another arm is big. And for him, I just like him against both left and right.
With Mike Clevenger going tonight, Dave, for the Padres, just based on the amount of work he's been able to do up to this point, the last week and change, 2 weeks, are you anticipating or game planning perhaps just maybe 2 times through your order that you'll have to face him? Or what's your game plan against him as long as he can go?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you just don't know what you're going to get. We haven't seen him in quite some time, and obviously when he came off the mound. But I've heard and the compete and the desire for Clev to be out there on the mound tonight. I think 2 times through is fair. But if it's longer, we'll certainly adjust, and if it's shorter, that's certainly a good thing for the Dodgers.
And for you guys, Dave, Walker goes as long as his finger and efficiency allows?
Yeah, that's it. There's no script. There's no pitch count. It's just more of watching him every inning and seeing potentially if an inning gets long, to seeing how the finger responds. Obviously, he's got to be throwing well, which I would expect. But then, just kind of monitor him inning by inning.
Finally, for me, Dave, with Will Smith in there and Edwin Rios off of your roster, do you anticipate Will getting the bulk of the catching duties in this 5-game series, since he's probably not going to be your DH since you don't have Kabert?
Yeah, I think right now we'll see how it plays out, but that's probably the plan, but things can change. I got Will catching tonight, and then DHing tomorrow, and Austin catching Clayton, and then we'll kind of go from there as the series progresses.
Go ahead.
Dave, just off that, why go with Terrence Gore over a third catcher, just in case you need one tomorrow night?
I think that the thing is that with Terrence, he can come into play every game potentially. And when you're talking about looking at something that potentially might not happen, and again, his situation might not happen, but if that situation presents itself, to not have him on the roster would be pretty costly, in my opinion. As far as the third catcher, I just don't see that. We just felt that pinch runner, Terrence, the dynamic to be implemented or put in a spot in a plus or minus 1 run game, tie game, just kind of outweighed it. And it was on the margin. It was a close one.
And when did you have an idea that Clevenger would get this start? Did you find out this morning? Did you have an idea last night? And how does that, from there, when you find out, you have your guys cramming, studying video information. A lot of these guys haven't faced him yet.
I didn't find out till this morning or this afternoon, something like that. And we've already dug on them and watched a lot of video and prepared for them.
And just lastly, a lot of, in years past, has been this rust versus rest argument. I'm just wondering, just having 4 days off, how did you make sure these guys, didn't necessarily, they kept it going and aren't going to go into this game flat, I guess?
Well, I know we're not going to go in flat. And certainly the rest piece, I think the rest was good. I think that to combat the rust, I thought we did a really good job of that first day in here. We had about 8 or 9 innings of pitching and hitters taking at bats. And the last couple of days we had 3 innings of pitching. So guys got their bats and there was some competition as far as guys getting their work. So I feel good on the position player side, and the relievers got their work in. They got a couple days before this series, so they're ready to go as well.
Next question from Cary Osborne. Go ahead.
Dave, Victor Gonzalez is the latest in a string of rookies that you've guys with little major league experience that you've had on the playoff roster. Is there a commonality between all those guys that gives you the confidence to give those guys that opportunity on the big stage?
I think it's certainly number one is stuff. You got to have good stuff, which Victor has. And also, I think the makeup and the heartbeat. And you just can we learned that from Julio in 16. And Victor this year. And other guys, whether it be Walker or Seager in 16, young players that rise to certain occasions. So that's something where we just feel really confident in certain players that we put them in positions for them to still be unique. And there's going to be some butterflies, but still feel that they can still be productive.
Next question from Jeff Sanders. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave, I'm wondering if there were any disadvantages to all the uncertainty for the Padres pitching, disadvantages for your team in setting the roster and setting plans.
I mean, I guess if you look at it on the surface, a disadvantage, and I talk about this a lot, is when there's no familiarity or past history. I think a little bit the net goes to the pitcher. So there's some pitchers that we haven't seen quite often or at all. So, you've got to sort of rely on scouting reports, video, and once you get in the batter's box, make adjustments. But I think that there's some situations for a couple of their guys with our guys as well. But I would say that's probably it, Jeff.
What about the uncertainty of not even knowing who their game 2 starter is? I mean, are there disadvantages in that?
I don't think so. I think that right now all we care about is game 1, and I think how we're approaching it is Clevenger is going to start, and we're preparing for anyone else that's on their roster. So I think that it's kind of a blanket way of preparing, but I feel good about it.
Could you watch the bullpen game that they threw on Friday, and does that inform maybe the way you guys game plan? Because I'm certain there's probably going to be a bullpen game in here at some point.
Yeah, well, I think that if you look at our roster, the way we've kind of staggered left and right for the most of the lineup, and our righties hit righties and lefties hit lefties. So, however they want to match up, I feel we can kind of combat whatever they throw at us, and also some guys on the bench if we want to get a different matchup as well.
Next question from Ken Gurnick. Go ahead.
Dave, if Rios hadn't been injured, would he have DH'd tonight?
He would have been a big part of the conversation. Losing him is a loss, certainly. The way he's performed, I certainly like him versus certainly any right-hander, but that's just not the case, and I expect Jock to go in there and take some good at-bats.
Thanks.
Next question from Bill Plunkett. Go ahead.
Dave, during the season, I don't think you used a reliever 3 days in a row more than once or twice. How much of that was a concession to the strange run up in the odd season? How much of that can you continue in a 5-game series with no days off?
It was mostly because of the buildup that we had coming out of summer camp. Number two, it was getting other relievers involved because we had a big stable of arms that we could kind of go to keep them relevant. And number three, it's very unlikely that, you don't see a Blake Trinan 3 days in a row or an Adam Kolarek who can do that too. So right now, the focus is tonight. But yeah, if you're looking out in a potential 5-game series, we'll do whatever we can to win this series.
With Dylan Floro, he was kind of a righty specialist in the past couple of years, but his splits are opposite his career history this year. What do you think is going on there?
Dylan's really continued to evolve. It's a sinker, it's a slider, and it's a changeup. And I think that the pitch mix, developing the changeup a little bit more, changing eye levels against the left-hand hitter just makes him pretty effective. And to your point, better against left this year. So, any reliever that you can call as neutralish or neutral, I think is what you're looking for, especially this year with that 3-batter minimum.
But the right-handers have been considerably more successful. Why is that?
Yeah, I think that I'll say that as far as the season, Bill. But if you look at the last month, I'd argue that the quality of contact, I think he's been much better against right the last 3 weeks, month of the regular season.
Thank you.
Yep.
We got time for one more. Go ahead, Rashawn.
Hey, Skip. With Walker and the blister, is it something that you may notice, from the dugout, or can you walk me kind of through the process of your monitoring? Is it a talk after every inning? Kind of what goes into watching that?
I won't be having that conversation with him every inning. That's going to be on our training staff and Mark Pryor, the pitching coach. I think for me is once you get the green light to start the next inning, or he gets the green light to start the next inning, now it's just kind of me watching how he's throwing the baseball, the feel. Is he losing balls arm side? Is the breaking ball not as sharp? Is it a long inning? That's where I kind of get involved.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.